There are a number of situations where it is possible to get feedback, both positive and negative, from your boss. In this episode, we cover the most common ones and give you tips on how to maximize your success in each of them. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you. As we've said in previous episodes, any interaction with your manager is an opportunity to better or worsen your relationship with your boss. This is especially true when you're receiving feedback from the boss. In this episode, we're going to cover the types of encounters with your manager that may involve feedback, how to prepare for them, and how to deal with each in turn.
So, Rick, what are some of the kinds of encounters that we might have?
Well, there's in a staff meeting, for example, or where the boss calls a meeting with you and you know the feedback will be positive.
Yeah, there can also be the situation where the boss calls the meeting and you know that the feedback's going to be negative.
Oh, yeah, there's that too. Or you ask for a meeting with the boss for another reason, and there's feedback in that meeting.
And then there could also be a scheduled performance review.
Right. And also it's been known to happen spontaneously at the water cooler. In those circumstances where you have advance notice, when you know in advance you're going to be getting feedback, it's important to always be prepared to take notes. And for any meeting that the boss calls, always be prepared to briefly review any projects you're working on and to be able to outline the most recent accomplishments on each, any problems or delays, any client feedback, or other information that will be of interest to the boss. You want to be ready to provide that anytime you know you're going to be meeting with the boss.
Yeah, then at the beginning of the encounter with the boss, you have to remember, and this is always, it's much easier if you aren't sure or if you think that it may be positive, but if you think that there may be some negative things that may come up, it's often harder for the manager to remember. You still have to build rapport. You still have to be friendly. You still have to have some personal conversation with the manager to start the meeting, because once again, as we said, each time it's another opportunity to build rapport with the boss.
Right, but you always have to be sensitive. Let the boss determine how long that rapport building lasts. Don't push it.
Exactly right.
Well, regardless of the circumstances of the feedback, if possible, you want to take notes and very carefully clarify any information that you're not sure about. Repeat back what the boss has said to you and the things that you think may be important to make sure that you've understood them correctly. And do this whether the feedback is positive or negative. You always want to be sure you got the important things right.
That may be something that there's something inside your head that says I shouldn't do that because it'll make me look like, I'm not getting it. But actually the boss will appreciate if you need to get information, you want to get the information, you want to make sure that what you've got is correct so you can move forward in sync with the boss.
Right. I mean, you just preface anything by saying, just so I'm sure I understood what you told me, and then repeat it back to him. Yeah.
Right. I can't tell you the number of times that I've coached someone. I mean, in communication, so many words are spoken back and forth in any meeting that it's very easy to get your mind off on something else, what you want to say next, and miss what the boss is saying, and can cause you big problems. So you need to make sure that you've got it clear.
Absolutely. Well, now if the feedback is negative, the first rule is listen, 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 and don't be defensive. At the first sign of negative feedback, especially on an important topic, our first instinct is to push back or to answer the criticism. Fight the urge. Remain quiet or only acknowledge what is being said when it's appropriate. Wait until you're sure the boss has finished speaking and giving their feedback. Only then ask for clarification on anything the boss said you didn't understand, regardless of whether you feel it's accurate or not. So again, you're not pushing back on it, you're not refuting it, you're not arguing with it, you're just making sure you understand what the boss's point of view is and taking it in, and if you're taking notes, getting it down accurately. But don't resist. Just listen to what's being said.
I agree, and there's no question that you have to know yourself. There, frankly, are some people that that would find that process easier to deal with, and there are some people that will find it more difficult to deal with in the sense that they will want to say something back. And what you said is exactly right, that you can't do that. So you've got to absolutely train yourself and work on the fact that you need to sit and listen.
Right. And also try to determine if the feedback is coming from the boss or another source who has been speaking to the boss. And if it's that, then determine whether or not, if it's not clear from how the boss is telling you, whether the boss agrees or not, and why or why not do they agree with the source of the criticism.
That's right. And then if you think, as you're listening, if the feedback is fair or accurate, say so. There's nothing wrong. People appreciate when you're being honest and straightforward. If it's negative and you're prepared to briefly state that you're aware of the issue and what you're working on to address it, and ask the boss for suggestions on how to proceed. For positive feedback, you want to thank the boss for the information as well as whomever had given the positive feedback to the boss. And ask the boss for any suggestions as to how to build on the positive feedback going forward.
Now, another time you can get negative feedback is in a staff meeting. And the urge to push back and be defensive is going to be really strong when you're among your peers. And again, fight the urge to push back. Listen to the feedback, take notes, but respond as little as possible. If asked what you plan to do about it, if possible, say you would like to look at it and think about it and talk to your staff so that you have the complete picture, and then say you'll get back to your boss as soon as possible.
In the coaching that I have done, the negative feedback kinds of things can happen in a staff meeting when there are a group of people and they're trying to make decisions as to whether they should move to the left, to move to the center, or move to the right. And there you're going to get some people who just don't have the same degree of self-control as you would like, and whether you're the manager or not, you may get the focus of their ire, and so they may bring it up, and it's something that clearly, as a manager, if you see it happening with your people, you're going to have to work on that over a period of time, and maybe take someone who has gone too far aside after the meeting and talk to them about it.
Yeah, but I think we've all been in that circumstance where there's somebody in the boss's staff that has it in for you, or really enjoys doing a little sort of hand-to-hand combat in the in the midst of everyone, just to kind of strut their stuff, and it's really provocative, and you don't want to push back, you don't want to argue in the staff meeting. Absolutely.
No, but your people will know over time who the people are who are aggressive, beyond assertive to aggressive, and then as the manager, you may have to deal with it.
Right. And what's important as managers, you do not take sides in the staff meeting.
Right.
And if you get positive feedback in a staff meeting, which is always really nice, you want to be humble and gracious, and above all, you want to give credit wherever you can to anyone who helped or is partially or wholly responsible for whatever you're getting the positive feedback from, especially your boss, if that's appropriate at all.
Then another area that you can have is the feedback in a performance review. And we're going to, this is a particularly important area. So it's a special circumstance, and we're going to cover it more in a future episode. But for now, let's just say, whether positive or negative, you want to take the opportunity for rapport building. You want to make sure that before you ever go to the performance review, that you have prepared as much as you possibly can, so that you can be ready for a positive circumstance, and you can also be ready for a negative circumstance if it comes out in the session. And you want to be able to ask for if it is negative, you want to be able to ask for guidance at how to improve the situation without pushing back. But as I said, we'll deal some more in a full session on the performance review.
Right. The last incidence of opportunity for feedback that we want to talk about is what we've called, for lack of a better term, feedback at the water cooler. But this can be any informal public encounter you have with the boss. Could be at the coffee machine, just in the hallway, whatever. And it tends to be positive, this kind of feedback, but not always. And again, if positive, you want to be humble, you want to thank the boss for the positive feedback, thank anybody or give credit to anybody that helped, particularly your staff, and contributed to the positive outcome. If it's negative, again, don't be defensive. Don't push back. Ask for clarification. Ask if you could meet with the boss to discuss it at a more appropriate time, because you don't want to have a discussion of this kind in a public setting. And
yeah, Rick, you were actually coaching someone who had a tendency to get into it out loud with their boss at the water cooler. Did you not?
I did, and this person said to me, I was coaching him later, but he said he really wasn't aware of it until one of his colleagues said, "My goodness, what were you two arguing about down the hall? We could all hear you." And suddenly he realized that he was lucky he hadn't been chucked out on his ear going after the boss in the hallway. So yeah, especially if you're young and inexperienced, you can lose control of yourself. And always remember, the boss is a human being, and they don't like that kind of pushback, and it doesn't do you any favors either. So in this episode, we've been talking about getting feedback from your manager, from your boss, in different circumstances, and how to behave in each one of those, whether the feedback is positive or negative. And I think the overriding message in this is, if the feedback is negative, don't push back, don't be defensive, take it all in, process it, and if at all possible, delay your response until you've had time to look into it and think about it. And if the feedback is positive, be humble and give credit where credit is due to as many people, including the boss, as is possible and appropriate. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.